My ex kept introducing my daughter to his girlfriends as his only child, so I finally showed her the photos. So Marcus and I split up when our daughter Cora was 2. She's 9 now. The divorce was messy in the way all divorces are when someone stops wanting to be married and stops wanting to explain why, but we got through it. We have a 60-40 split, I have the majority, and for a few years it was actually fine. He showed up, he took her on weekends, he came to her school stuff, whatever happened between us, he was a decent enough dad. So I stayed out of his personal life and he stayed out of mine. Then things started shifting. I don't know if it was the new girlfriend or just him turning into someone I didn't recognize, but about 2 years ago, little things started coming up. The first time Cora mentioned it, I honestly didn't catch it. She came home from a weekend at his place and mentioned that his girlfriend Emma had called her Marcus's little shadow. I didn't think anything of it. Cute, maybe a little weird, whatever. Then 6 months later, different girlfriend. He'd broken up with Emma somewhere in there and was seeing someone named Brooke. Cora came home and said, Brooke didn't know about me at all. She seemed surprised when I walked in. I asked her to say more about that. She shrugged and said, I think dad forgot to tell her he had a kid. I told myself there were 100 explanations for that, but then she came home from a birthday dinner at his mom's house and said something that made my stomach drop. She said his new girlfriend, this one named Jessie, had made a comment at dinner about how Marcus was such a dedicated only child dad. Cora said she asked what that meant, and Jessie laughed and said that you're his whole world. I asked Cora how she felt about that. She said confused because she knew she had a half-brother. See, Marcus has a son, Devin. He's 15. Marcus and Devin's mom never lived together, never even really dated, and Marcus has basically had nothing to do with Devin since Devin was about 5. I knew about it going into our marriage. He said it was complicated and he was paying child support, and that was the extent of what he wanted to discuss. I didn't push, stupid in hindsight, but I didn't push. Cora knew about Devin because I told her when she was 6 or 7. I kept it simple. She had a big brother named Devin who lived with his mom, and they didn't see each other much, but he existed and he was family. She accepted it the way kids accept things without a lot of questions and moved on. She apparently had never mentioned Devin to any of Marcus's girlfriends. I think she thought he knew they knew. After the Jessie thing, I started paying more attention. I didn't say anything to Marcus yet. I just watched. Cora mentioned once that Jessie asked her to be in a Just Us 3 photo and said Marcus wanted a picture of his whole family. She mentioned that Marcus had gotten Jessie a keychain that said Girl Dad on it for Valentine's Day. She mentioned that Jessie had called Cora his one and only at some restaurant while the waitress was taking their order. That one landed different. She told me that part quietly, like she wasn't sure what to do with it. I sat with it for a while. I called my sister and talked through it for like an hour. She said I should go to Marcus directly. I knew I probably should, but honestly I also knew that conversation would go nowhere because Marcus has been erasing Devin for a decade and nobody's been able to make him stop. So I thought about what Cora actually needed, which wasn't for me to fight with her dad again. What she needed was to understand that she wasn't alone in being something Marcus had a habit of making invisible. One afternoon about 3 weeks ago, she was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, and I went and got my phone. I had pictures, old ones I'd kept, not out of nostalgia, just because you keep things. There was one from Devin's 5th birthday. He and Cora were babies in it, both of them at a table with a cake between them, laughing. Cora had no memory of it. There was another one Marcus had sent me when they were still trying. His attempt at co-parenting. Devin holding her on a swing set. She would have been about 1. I sat down next to her and said, can I show you something? She looked up and I handed her the phone. She looked at the first photo for a long time. She said, is that Devin? I said, yeah. She looked at the second one. Then she looked at me and said, Dad never shows Jessie pictures of him, does he? It wasn't really a question. I said, I don't think so, no. She was quiet for a minute. Then she said, so when Jessie says I'm his only kid, she doesn't know she's wrong. I said, she doesn't know. Cora put the phone down and went back to her worksheet. She didn't say anything else about it that night. I didn't push. A week later, she came home from Marcus's and told me she'd shown Jessie the swing set photo herself. She said Jessie's face did something weird. Then Jessie looked at Marcus and said, you have another kid? Cora said Marcus got very quiet and said it was complicated and he'd explain later. Cora looked at me after she told me that and said, I just thought she should know the real number. She hasn't called me to complain about it. Jessie, I mean, but Marcus called 3 days later saying I was interfering in his relationship and poisoning Cora against him, and I should have come to him first instead of involving our daughter. I told him Cora involved herself when he started letting people call her his only child. He said I was being vindictive. I told him I showed our daughter a photo of her brother and let her make her own decisions about what to do with it. He hung up. Jessie hasn't been mentioned since Cora's last 2 visits.